picked me up when he came to the recovery house. I had to walk to the L every day to go to the clinic at first.
Counting every homeless person in Fresno. That's what one group has set out to do to gather the vital information about a critical issue plaguing this city.
I wouldn't wish this on anyone. That's what a man says as he stares at the ground, voice flat from exhaustion. He's not performing. He's not asking for attention. He's just telling the truth. It is a summer morning in Fresno, California. The sun rises fast here. By midday, the heat can feel like a weight on your chest. Along the edges of Highway 99, where trucks thunder past like a constant storm, a line of tents sits in uneven rows, tarps, blankets, shopping carts, and plastic bins arranged like a fragile neighborhood that could disappear in a single sweep. A woman kneels over a small camp stove, trying to warm something cheap for breakfast while two kids stay close to her legs. A man in a worn wheelchair adjusts a blanket to block the sun. An older worker, hands still rough from years of labor, rests on a bench with eyes that look far away. And behind it all is a quiet panic, because when you're unsheltered, every hour is a question. Where can I be safe? Where can I cool down? Where can I sleep without being told to move? Now add another danger that moves through the street like a whisper. Fentanyl, often hidden in counterfeit pills and mixed substances, turning a moment of numbness into a life-threatening risk. This is not a distant crisis. This is the United States. Welcome to U.S. Homeless Secrets. U.S. Homeless Secrets is where the stories people avoid are told plainly, without humiliation and without exploitation. We don't show graphic scenes. We don't glamorize drug use. We don't provide details that encourage harm. We focus on human reality, public safety, and solutions that respect dignity, fully within YouTube policy. Names and identifying details are changed for protection. Some stories are composites based on recurring patterns described by outreach workers and public reports. Today we're going inside Fresno's dual emergency, homelessness and the overdose risk linked to synthetic opioids. We'll walk through the reasons this happened, the people living it right now, and what it would actually take to pull thousands back from the edge. Because here is the question that should stay with you from the first word to the last. If this can happen in a city that feeds the nation, how close is it to happening anywhere? Fresno, from agricultural pride to a housing break. Fresno is often described as the heart of the Central Valley, fields, orchards, long roads, and hard work. For generations, people came here believing in something simple. If you work, you can build a steady life. But in the last decade, that steady life has become harder to hold. Housing costs rose. Wages did not keep up. A growing share of households became cost-burdened, paying so much toward rent that one emergency can knock them over. And emergencies are not rare. A medical bill, a job cut, a car breaking down, a family crisis, a landlord selling a building, a rent increase that arrives with a cold smile and a new number you cannot meet. When the margin is thin, the fall is fast. Local point-in-time counts in Fresno and Madera have reported thousands of people experiencing homelessness, with a notable portion living unsheltered, outside, in cars, or in makeshift shelters. Each year, the number shifts, but the pattern is consistent. Too many people are outside and too many services are stretched beyond capacity. The street shows the real outcome of a housing gap. Not theory, not politics, reality. It looks like parents trying to make a tent feel like a bedroom. It looks like seniors with mobility issues trying to survive on sidewalks built for passing through, not living on. It looks like people who once had keys now holding onto plastic bags because that's all they can protect. Fresno's crisis is not one story. It is thousands of stories stacked together, quiet collapses happening in plain sight. The daily details that prove this is not a choice. There's a myth that floats around whenever homelessness becomes visible. The myth is, they chose this. Fresno streets prove otherwise. A tent is not a lifestyle upgrade. A car is not a retirement plan. A bench is not a home. When you listen long enough, you hear the same theme. People did not choose to lose housing. They lost the math. They lost a safety net. They lost time. They lost a job. They lost a relationship. They lost health. Meet Lena, a single mother in her early 30s. That's not her real name, but her story is real. Lena wakes before her kids. She checks the area the way people with homes check weather apps, by scanning for danger. She tries to keep breakfast simple. She tries to make school happen. She tries to keep her children from absorbing the fear she carries every hour. Her eyes are swollen most mornings, not from sleep, but from the opposite of sleep. Staying awake too long because outside is not a place that truly rests. Lena told a volunteer something that stays with you. I'm not trying to be perfect. I'm trying to be safe. That line explains a lot. Homelessness takes normal tasks, sleeping, showering, storing food, and turns them into daily battles. And when your life becomes survival, paperwork becomes harder, appointments are missed, and systems that require stability end up denying the people who need stability most. You can't motivate someone out of a housing shortage. You can't shame someone into being safe at night. You can't demand perfect recovery from someone who has nowhere to recover. That's not compassion. That's fantasy. A second storm, overdose risk, and the shadow of synthetic opioids. Fresno faces a double emergency. The first is homelessness. The second is the health crisis that rides alongside it, overdose risk, especially linked to synthetic opioids like fentanyl. Let's say this carefully and responsibly. Fentanyl is extremely potent. It is often found in counterfeit pills and mixed into other substances without people realizing it. This makes the risk unpredictable and deadly, particularly for people who are already living with stress, trauma, and unstable access to healthcare. When someone is unsheltered, everything that protects health is weaker. People use alone because they don't want police contact, judgment, or conflict. People don't have consistent medical care. People don't have stable mental health support. People self-medicate pain, grief, and fear. And when treatment slots are limited, the door out feels locked. We do not show drug use. We do not describe methods. We do not sensationalize. But we do tell the truth. The risk is real, and it is taking lives. This crisis doesn't just harm individuals. It multiplies homelessness, because addiction can destroy work stability. It can fracture family support. It can lead to legal trouble. It can deepen medical issues. And it can make it harder to qualify for housing programs that demand paperwork, appointments, and consistent follow-through. In other words, the storm feeds itself, and people on the street get pulled deeper. Danny, the quiet plea for a way out. Meet Danny, 33. Not his real name. We met him near the highway corridor where noise never stops. Danny's body looks older than 33. His eyes are tired, the kind of tired that sleep doesn't fix. His hands shake slightly as he grips a paper cup. Danny told us, "I know I need rehab. I know I need to stop. I just don't know how to get out." That is what people miss when they say, "Just get help." Help is not always available at the moment someone is ready. Detox beds can be limited. Programs can have waiting lists. Transportation can be a barrier. Phones get lost or stolen. Appointments get missed. And the system often punishes missteps, even when missteps are the predictable result of living outside. Danny isn't asking for a miracle. He is asking for a door that opens when he knocks. He is asking for a process that doesn't require perfection before stability. His story is a reminder. Addiction is not only a personal struggle. It is also a systems test. If treatment is out of reach, people relapse. If housing is out of reach, recovery becomes harder. If mental health care is out of reach, the street becomes a trap. Steve and Robbie, surviving together in a place that doesn't feel safe. In encampments, you sometimes see something that contradicts the stereotype. Connection, friendship, people protecting each other in the smallest ways. Meet Steve and Robbie. Steve is in his 60s. Robbie is in his 20s. They have been unhoused for years. Their relationship isn't about romance or labels. It's about survival, loyalty, and being the one person who doesn't disappear. Steve talks about being robbed, about nights when danger comes from strangers, and sometimes from people in the same camp who are desperate. Robbie talks about trying to earn money through small gigs, collecting recyclables, busking, fixing whatever he can. Steve said, "We just want somewhere we can sleep without fear." That is not a luxury request. That is the baseline of human life. And when thousands can't reach that baseline, the city becomes a pressure cooker. The family trap, kids, school, and a future that feels unstable. Homelessness hits adults hard, but it hits children in a different way, because childhood is supposed to be stable enough to grow. When kids sleep in cars, tents, or rotating shelters, school becomes harder. Concentration drops. Attendance becomes inconsistent. Stress becomes normal, and the child starts learning a lesson they shouldn't have to learn. Nothing stays. A child doesn't need a luxury bedroom. A child needs a safe place to sleep and a quiet place to do homework. That's it. And when a city can't provide that for thousands of kids, the crisis becomes generational. Teachers and community centers try. Outreach teams try. Food programs try. But the need is bigger than the patchwork. Fresno doesn't only need emergency services. It needs long-term stability for families. Because if we don't protect children from the worst of this crisis, we're not solving homelessness. We're planting the next chapter of it. Policies that push people around, and why IT doesn't work. When a city feels overwhelmed, it often reaches for the fastest visible response. Citations, sweeps, orders to move, rules that remove tents from one block. But here's the hard truth. If you push people away without offering stable alternatives, you don't fix homelessness. You relocate it. You break connections to outreach workers. You increase stress. You increase the loss of medication, documents, and belongings. You make it harder for people to follow program requirements. And you increase the likelihood of crisis. Many unhoused people describe the same cycle. They move. They lose things. They return. Because there is nowhere else to go. A policy that focuses on visibility instead of stability is a policy that repeats the crisis forever. Fresno has tried housing conversions, motels converted into temporary housing, programs that stabilize families, efforts that do work for some people. And when those programs work, the result is immediate. Kids sleep better. Parents think clearer. People show up for appointments. Job searches become possible. Recovery becomes more realistic. One former unhoused mother in a temporary program said, "It gave me a starting point again." A roof doesn't solve everything, but without a roof, everything else is harder.